Every week, I hear from someone who made the move, sold the house, packed the bags, landed in Southeast Asia with a plan and a budget and the genuine belief that they had figured it out. And then, 6 months later, something went wrong. Not catastrophically wrong. Not the horror stories you see on certain YouTube channels, the lost fortunes, the betrayals, the dramatic collapses. Most retirement abroad stories do not end in disaster. But they do not always go the way people planned. And the gap between what people expected and what they found is almost always explained by the same set of mistakes. Mistakes that are entirely avoidable. Mistakes that nobody told them about before they left. I have spent serious time across Southeast Asia, in Vietnam, Thailand, Sri Lanka, and Cambodia. I have talked to retirees who thrived and retirees who struggled. I have watched people make the same errors repeatedly, in different countries, in different decades, with different budgets. This video is everything I learned from those conversations. 10 mistakes, real ones. The kind that cost people money, health, happiness, and years they cannot get back. If you are planning to retire in Southeast Asia, watch this before you book anything. Mistake 1. Visiting as a tourist and planning as a resident. This is the most common mistake and it sets up every other mistake that follows. You visit Thailand for 2 weeks. You stay in a hotel in Chiang Mai. The weather is perfect. The food is extraordinary. The cost of everything shocks you in the best possible way. You do the math on the back of a napkin and think, I could live here for almost nothing. You go home, you research, you plan, you move. And then you discover that living somewhere is completely different from visiting it. The hotel breakfast is not your daily life. The tourist restaurants you ate at every night are not where locals eat. The activities you filled your 2 weeks with are not the rhythm of a normal day. When you visit Southeast Asia as a tourist, you are experiencing the best version of it. Carefully curated, designed for short stays, optimized for the experience of discovery. When you live there, you experience the actual version, the bureaucracy, the infrastructure limitations, the moments when the power goes out or the internet stops working, or the landlord does not respond for 3 days, the loneliness of a Tuesday afternoon when you do not have anywhere to be and do not yet know anyone. The solution is simple, but requires discipline. Before you commit to any Southeast Asian country as a retirement destination, spend a minimum of 60 to 90 days there living as a resident rather than a tourist. Rent an apartment, not a hotel room. Cook some meals at home. Take public transport. Find a doctor. Go to a government office. Do the things that constitute actual daily life rather than an extended holiday. If the experience still works after 90 days of real living, then you have genuine information on which to base a decision. If it does not, you have saved yourself a very expensive mistake. Mistake 2. Underestimating the healthcare reality. Healthcare is the retirement abroad question that most people research the least and worry about the most, but in the wrong order. They worry abstractly and research superficially. Here is what superficial research produces. You read that Thailand has world-class hospitals. This is true. Bangkok's Bumrungrad Hospital is genuinely one of the best in Asia. You read that Vietnam has international hospitals in Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi. Also true. You read that medical costs in Southeast Asia are a fraction of American prices. Accurate. You conclude that healthcare abroad is fine. What superficial research misses is the gap between what is available in the major cities and what is available where you actually plan to live. If you retire in Chiang Mai, 2 hours from Bangkok by plane, the hospital infrastructure is adequate for most situations, but limited for complex specialist care. If something serious happens, you may need to travel. If you retire in Ella, Sri Lanka, a beautiful mountain village with almost no medical infrastructure, a serious health event requires emergency transport to Colombo, 4 to 5 hours away on winding mountain roads. If you retire in Siem Reap, Cambodia, a city whose medical infrastructure has improved but remains limited, the standard advice from every long-term expat is to get to Bangkok for anything that matters. The mistake is not moving to these places. The mistake is moving without a clear, specific, tested plan for what happens when your health requires serious attention. Before you commit to any Southeast Asian retirement location, answer these questions with specifics, not generalities. Where is the nearest hospital that can handle a cardiac event? How long does it take to get there? Have you been there and met the staff? Do they speak English? Do you have international health insurance with medical evacuation coverage? Have you read the policy in detail and confirmed it covers the conditions most likely to affect you? If your answer to any of these is vague, fix that before you move. Mistake 3. The visa assumption. This mistake costs people enormous amounts of stress and sometimes money. The assumption is that because you can enter a Southeast Asian country easily as a tourist, staying long-term will be similarly straightforward. It is not. Tourist visas are designed for short visits. In Thailand, the tourist visa allows 60 days, extendable once for 30 more. In Vietnam, the e-visa allows 90 days. In Cambodia, a tourist visa gives 30 days. In Sri Lanka, 30 days on arrival extendable to 90. These are not retirement visas. They are not designed for permanent residence, and treating them as such creates a situation that is legally precarious and practically exhausting. The visa run, leaving the country briefly to reset your tourist visa and re-enter, is a practice that many long-term Southeast Asia residents have used for years. It works until it does not. Immigration officers have the discretion to deny re-entry to people who appear to be living in the country on tourist visas. This happens, not frequently, but it happens. And when it does, it can end a retirement abroad plan overnight. Every country in Southeast Asia has legitimate long-term visa options beyond the tourist visa. Vietnam has the DN Business Visa and the DH Digital Nomad Visa. Thailand has the Thailand Elite Visa and the Long-Term Resident Visa. Cambodia has the Ordinary Visa, which can be extended indefinitely. Sri Lanka has recently introduced a Digital Nomad Visa. Research these options before you move. Use a reputable visa agent in the country you plan to live in. Understand exactly what your legal status is and how to maintain it. Do not rely on tourist visa extensions as a long-term strategy. The visa situation in Southeast Asia changes regularly. What worked last year may not work this year. Stay current and stay legal. Mistake 4. Choosing the wrong city. This mistake is so common, it deserves a full section, because the city you choose determines almost everything about your retirement experience, and most people choose based on inadequate information. The most common version of this mistake is choosing a city because it is famous, rather than because it fits your actual needs. Bangkok is famous. It is extraordinary for short visits. For retirement, it is loud, polluted, traffic-choked, and in its most expat-popular areas, increasingly expensive. Many retirees who move to Bangkok specifically eventually relocate to Chiang Mai or Hua Hin or somewhere smaller and quieter. Phuket is famous. The beaches are beautiful. It is also heavily touristed, significantly more expensive than most of Thailand, and in the most visited areas has lost much of the authenticity that made Thailand appealing in the first place. Hoi An in Vietnam is frequently described as one of the most beautiful towns in Southeast Asia. It is. It is also small, with limited healthcare infrastructure, an economy almost entirely dependent on tourism, and a character that is increasingly shaped by the expectations of the visitors it receives rather than the needs of the people who live there. The cities that work best for long-term retirement in Southeast Asia are often not the most famous ones. Da Nang in Vietnam, modern, beachside, well-serviced, with a strong expat community and good healthcare access, consistently outperforms its more famous neighbors for actual livability. Da Lat in Vietnam. Cool climate, affordable, beautiful, with a pace that suits retirement, is almost unknown in Western retirement planning circles, despite being one of the best options in the region. Chiang Mai in Thailand, not a secret, but consistently rated by long-term expats as the most livable city in the country for retirement, earns that reputation through genuine infrastructure and community rather than tourism marketing. The lesson is this: do not choose your retirement city based on where you had your best holiday. Choose it based on careful research into the specific factors that matter for long-term living: healthcare access, internet reliability, climate, cost of living, community, ease of daily life. These factors do not always point to the most photographed city. Mistake 5, getting the budget wrong. Almost every retiree who moves to Southeast Asia underestimates their actual costs. Not dramatically. The cost of living is genuinely lower than in Western countries. But the gap between the fantasy budget and the real budget is consistently wider than people expect. The fantasy budget looks like this: rent $200, food $100, transport $30, everything else $50. Total $380 per month. The reality budget for comfortable living in a major Southeast Asian city looks more like this: rent $350 to $500 for decent quality accommodation in a good location. Food $200 to $250, eating out regularly and shopping at international supermarkets occasionally. Transport $60 to $80, including occasional taxis and day trips. Healthcare insurance $100 to $200, depending on age and coverage. Utilities and internet $50 to $60. Entertainment, social activities, and the unexpected $150 to $200. Total $1,000 to $1,200 per month for comfortable living. Not luxury, comfortable. The fantasy budget is achievable if you live extremely simply, cook every meal at home, never travel within the country, have no health issues, and socialize very little. It is not achievable for most people living a full and active retirement. The other budget mistake is failing to account for one-time costs. The flight to get there, the deposit on an apartment, typically 2 months' rent paid up front, the furniture and household items you need to make a rental feel like a home, the visa fees, the health check required for certain visa categories, the initial period before you know where to shop cheaply and how to navigate the local transport system efficiently. Setup costs for a Southeast Asian retirement realistically run $2,000 to $4,000 before your first month of normal living expenses begins. Budget for this. It is not a surprise if you plan for it. Mistake 6. Isolation. This is the mistake that nobody talks about in retirement abroad. Content, because it is not practical or financial. It is human. Moving to Southeast Asia alone, without an existing social network, without a plan for building one, without honest self-assessment of how you handle solitude, is one of the most significant risk factors for an unsuccessful retirement abroad. The first weeks in a new country are often exhilarating. Everything is new. Discovery fills the time. The novelty of the environment makes solitude feel like independence rather than isolation. By month 3 or 4, the novelty has faded. The days need filling. The evenings need company. The accumulation of small moments that make a life, conversations, shared meals, the kind of low-stakes social contact that happens naturally in the environment you spent decades building, is suddenly absent. Loneliness in retirement abroad is real, common, and rarely discussed honestly. The solution is not to avoid moving. It is to plan for community with the same seriousness you plan for accommodation and healthcare. Research the expat community in your chosen city before you arrive. Join the Facebook groups. Attend the meetups. Find the activities that match your interests, running clubs, hiking groups, language exchanges. Give yourself a specific timeline and target. In the first 90 days, I will attend at least 2 community events per week. I will introduce myself to 5 new people. I will find 1 regular activity that puts me in contact with the same people repeatedly. Community does not build itself. In a new country, it requires deliberate effort. The retirees who thrive abroad are almost universally the ones who invested in building social lives rather than expecting them to happen automatically. Mistake 7. Ignoring the language. You do not need to speak Vietnamese or Thai or Sinhala fluently to retire in Southeast Asia. But the retirees who learn even basic functional language, enough to greet people, order food, navigate simple transactions, express basic needs, have consistently better experiences than those who rely entirely on English. This is not about politeness, though. Politeness matters. It is about access. The most authentic experiences in Southeast Asia, the restaurants without English menus, the markets where prices are set for locals, the neighborhoods where genuine daily life happens, are largely inaccessible to people who cannot communicate at all in the local language. Learning 50 words of Vietnamese or Thai opens doors that remain closed to people who never try. More practically, in medical situations, in bureaucratic encounters, in any interaction outside the tourist and expat infrastructure, some language ability is genuinely useful. Not fluency, not even conversation, just enough to orient yourself and signal respect. Start before you move. Language apps, Online tutors, YouTube channels in the local language, all of these are available. Arrive with 100 words and a willingness to use them badly. The local response to genuine effort is almost universally warm. Mistake 8. The relationship trap. This needs to be said directly and without judgment. Southeast Asia has a well-documented pattern of romantic relationships between older Western retirees and significantly younger local partners. Some of these relationships are genuine, mutual, and work well. Many are not. The financial dynamics of these relationships, the significant wealth disparity between a Western retiree on a fixed income and a local person earning a local wage, create conditions that make exploitation possible in both directions. Western retirees have lost significant savings to relationships that turned out to be transactional rather than genuine. This happens in Thailand, in Vietnam, in Cambodia, in Sri Lanka. It happens to men and to women. It happens to people who considered themselves worldly and experienced. The mistake is not forming relationships with local people. The mistake is moving too fast, trusting too completely, and making financial decisions, property purchases, large transfers of money, joint accounts, before a relationship has been tested by time and circumstances. If you enter a relationship in Southeast Asia, move slowly. Keep your finances separate until you have genuine reason to trust otherwise. Talk to other long-term expats who have experience with relationships in the country. Listen to the people who have been there longer than you. This is not cynicism. It is the same advice that applies to any significant relationship at any age in any country. Move slowly, trust carefully. Protect yourself while remaining open. Mistake 9. Not having an exit plan. Most people who retire in Southeast Asia do not plan for the possibility that it might not work. This is understandable. You have done the research. You have made the decision. You are committed. Planning for failure feels like inviting it, but circumstances change. Health changes. Family situations change. The country you chose changes. The relationship you built there ends. The political or economic situation shifts. Retirees who have an exit plan, who know what it would take to return home or relocate, who have maintained financial flexibility rather than committing everything to their overseas life, navigate these changes far more smoothly than those who have not. Keep a financial buffer that is accessible from anywhere. Maintain your connections at home, banking relationships, healthcare providers, social ties. Do not sell everything before you leave. Rent first, then decide whether to make more permanent financial commitments. The exit plan is not a prediction of failure. It is the thing that allows you to commit fully to your retirement abroad, because you know that if you need to leave, you can. Mistake 10. Waiting too long. The final mistake is perhaps the most common of all. People spend years researching Southeast Asian retirement. They read every article, watch every video, join every forum, plan every detail, and they do not go. Something always needs to happen first. One more year of saving, one more family obligation to resolve, one more thing to sort out at home. The right time is always slightly in the future. Meanwhile, the window that makes Southeast Asian retirement so compelling is slowly closing. Prices in the most popular destinations have been rising for years. The cities that felt undiscovered a decade ago feel well known today. The authentic experiences that made Vietnam or Thailand or Sri Lanka so extraordinary are gradually being replaced by the tourist infrastructure built to serve the people who arrive to find them. The Day Lat that exists today will not exist in 10 years. The Da Nang that is affordable and unsaturated today will not be the same in a decade. The Sri Lanka that still has empty beaches and genuine human warmth and a $2 rice and curry, that Sri Lanka is already changing. The best time to retire in Southeast Asia was 5 years ago. The second best time is now. Stop researching. Make the decision. Go live the life you have been planning. The only mistake worse than making the wrong move is never making any move at all. Thanks for watching. Which of these mistakes concerns you most? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and I will answer as many as I can. And if you want the full breakdown of any specific country or city I mentioned in this video, Vietnam, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, those videos are already on this channel. See you in the next one. Let me go deeper on a few of these mistakes, because the summary version does not always capture the specific ways they play out in real life. On the healthcare mistake, let me give you a specific scenario. A retired American couple moves to Chiang Mai. They have done their research. They know about the international hospitals. They have basic health insurance. They feel prepared. 8 months after they arrive, the husband has a cardiac event. Not a full heart attack, a serious warning sign that requires immediate specialist attention and follow-up care. The local hospital stabilizes him, but the cardiologist recommends a specific procedure that requires equipment only available in Bangkok. The couple books flights to Bangkok. The procedure goes well, but the follow-up care requires 3 more visits to Bangkok over the next 4 months. Each visit means flights, accommodation, and time away from the life they built in Chiang Mai. Their insurance covers the medical costs. It does not cover the flights, the hotels, or the disruption. They had not budgeted for this. They had not planned their accommodation in Chiang Mai with the possibility of extended Bangkok visits in mind. They made it work, but the stress, financial and emotional, of those 4 months was significant, and it was entirely predictable with better planning. The lesson is not to avoid Chiang Mai. The lesson is to build the Bangkok connection into your life from the beginning. Find your Bangkok cardiologist before you need one. Know the hospital. Have a relationship with a doctor there. Budget for 2 or 3 medical trips to Bangkok per year as a baseline assumption rather than an emergency contingency. This approach, treating specialist medical access as part of your regular retirement planning rather than an emergency response, transforms a potential crisis into a manageable routine. On the wrong city mistake, let me be specific about what the research process should look like. Most people research retirement destinations by reading articles and watching videos. This is a starting point, not a conclusion. The questions that actually determine whether a city works for you cannot be answered by articles or videos. They can only be answered by being there. Is the noise level tolerable for someone who needs quiet mornings? Is the traffic manageable for someone with limited mobility? Is the expat community the right fit socially? Is the internet in the specific neighborhood you are considering actually reliable? Is the air quality in the specific part of the city you want to live in better or worse than the city average? These are hyper-local questions. The answer in one neighborhood can be completely different from the answer 2 kilometers away. Spend time in your chosen city at different times of day and different days of the week. Walk the neighborhood you are considering at 7 in the morning and at 7 in the evening. Visit the local market on a weekday and on a weekend. Sit in the park on a Tuesday afternoon and notice who else is there and what they are doing. You are not just researching a city, you are researching a specific life in a specific place. The specificity of that research determines whether your retirement works. On the isolation mistake, one practical addition. The retirees who build the strongest social lives in Southeast Asia are almost always the ones who arrived with a specific skill or interest that connects them to others. Not a vague interest, a specific, regular activity. Running. A running club in almost every Southeast Asian city of any size provides weekly contact with a consistent group of people. The shared activity creates a natural basis for friendship that does not require the awkward effort of cold social introduction. Cooking classes, photography groups, Buddhist meditation practice, volunteer work at local schools or NGOs, language exchange partnerships with locals who want to practice English. The activity itself matters less than the regularity and the shared focus. Something that puts you in the same room with the same people on a predictable schedule is the foundation of every social network ever built. Arrive with the activity already identified. Do not wait until you are lonely to start looking for community. By then, the loneliness has already done damage that is harder to repair. One final thought before we close. The 10 mistakes in this video share a common root. They all come from the gap between how retirement abroad looks from the outside and how it actually works on the inside. From the outside, retirement in Southeast Asia looks simple, cheap, easy, obvious. From the inside, it is a complex life transition that requires the same careful planning, honest self-assessment, and willingness to adapt that any major life change demands. The retirees who thrive in Southeast Asia are not the ones who expected it to be easy. They are the ones who treated it seriously, who researched carefully, planned specifically, built community deliberately, maintained financial flexibility, and stayed honest with themselves about what was working and what was not. They made mistakes too. Everyone does, but they made smaller mistakes, caught them earlier, and had the resources, financial, social, and psychological, to recover from them quickly. That is the goal of this video, not to discourage you, not to make Southeast Asian retirement seem harder than it is, but to give you the information that makes the difference between a retirement that works and one that does not. Go. Plan carefully, stay honest, build slowly. The life is there waiting for you.